everything in place. I so prepared today, like beyond my personal understanding for how prepared I could be as a person. I was prepared. And then I was like, I'm so prepared. I'm going to go out and talk to my husband. So I went out and talked to Alex, and we got so into a conversation that la, 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 la. And then suddenly it's 10:05 and I'm like, oh my God. This is the problem with marrying your best friend. You start talking to him and then you just keep talking and talking and talking. And then suddenly you're like, oh my God, I have to go live. So I am 5 minutes late. My apologies. But I was having captivating conversation. So welcome everyone to the Stop Shitting All Over Yourself podcast, the live podcast recording where we come to talk about all the things that we've learned over the years for our businesses that in our guts, we just kind of feel like something's not working for us. I started this podcast because, I worked with a lot of businesses actually, hold on, I just want to fix this. I worked with, nope. This is the one. There we go. I've worked with, okay, I think that's what I'm trying to do. It's a little weird. Okay. There we go. All right. Trying to figure this out still a little bit. I think I'm a little tiny. Hi, Dawn. So good to see you. So I've worked with a lot of business owners over the years. And including myself as I grew my own business. And one of the things that I started to discover is more and more often I found myself learning that I needed to do something that was in complete contradiction with what I had been taught previously. And I was like, why is this happening? Like, I learned this thing and now I'm finding out that this is not the way that it works. And I'm like, all right, so fix it, do the thing. Oh my God, it works, right? With this new change. After this happens to you enough times, you kind of start to look at what you really start to look back and say, okay, was everything I learned wrong? And I remember sitting there one day, like, being like, did I learn everything wrong? Like, is that just what happened? That I learned everything wrong? And the truth is I didn't. I learned actually a lot of really good things, but specifically related to business, I had a lot of bad habits, a lot of bad ideas. My perspectives were not quite right. I was overworking myself. There were just a lot of things that I needed to work on. And it had never really occurred to me that I needed to work on my business mindset the same way I worked on my personal mindset. It didn't occur to me that I needed to do business spring cleanings the same way I did personal spring cleanings. It just never occurred to me that my business needed to be treated like I would treat other parts of my life. Your house, every year at school, you start fresh. Like, you do spring cleaning for your house. It just never occurred to me that those were things that I would need to do. And I realized that, wow, I've literally just been growing and growing and growing. And never once have I stopped to ask myself, are these things still even relevant? Right. So it's almost as if you think about it, like, oh God, I was at this antique store the other day and they had one of those old rotary phones that I used to have. I think I talked about this in an intent, in the squad this one day. Hi, Christy. Hello, Sophia. So it had this old rotary phone, right? And and I had that phone. They had a yellow one and a blue one. Ours was green, but they didn't have the one that was ours. And there's something so satisfying about, so I picked up the phone and I did the, go back, right? There is something so satisfying about dialing a phone number, right? So I dialed a phone number. Now that was the most cutting edge way to connect with your friends and family in the 80s, right? The most cutting, if you're like, oh my God, I can call America. You're kidding. I'm in Pakistan. I can call America and I can talk to you immediately. That is crazy. That's amazing, right? But now, if I was to tell you, listen, use a rotary phone to call America and you're going to have to call the operator and book a call, you'd be like, dude, that is really antiquated. I could just PM someone. I mean, most of us are in America, actually. So let's say Pakistan or Australia or somewhere else, right? You could just PM them. You could just WhatsApp them. You could just pick up the phone and call. You don't even need anything special anymore. It's literally just WhatsApp, call them, and I can call my brother, I can call my dad, I can call anyone all over the world just by dialing the phone number on my smartphone, right? If I said to you that I was going to dial a phone, right? You'd be like, what is wrong with you? You are like so 40 years ago, right? Now, the reason why we know about phones is because there's ads and everything telling us, listen, this is the new phone, this is the new tech, this is the new hotness. All our friends are telling us, this is the new tech, this is the new hotness, whatever, right? But there is nothing like that in business to make sure that we stay on track on our business, to make sure that we're not using outdated ideas on our business. So for me, when I started to realize this, I was like, oh my God, like I'm not the only one doing this. And I started to see my colleagues doing this and my friends and my coaches. Like it wasn't just me. Like all of us were bringing in all of these like old antiquated ideas from the 80s and the 90s and the 70s about business and about what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to feel and how you're supposed to act as a woman, and just all of these ideas that honestly, some of them are conflicting, because it's like, shut up, sit down, don't say anything. But also you've got to promote your business. So stand up, toot your own horn, but don't toot your own horn. Make sure you talk a lot about your business and how awesome you are, but be modest, right? Like all of these conflicting ideas in our heads, especially as women, I was just like, you know what? I have spent years in therapy working through this. I have worked with experts and coaches, and I am an extremely self-aware person who loves to talk about these kinds of things. So I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I want to do a podcast where I can share bit by bit how each of these experiences molded and shaped me. So today we are, yes, Don, think outside the box. So today we're going to be talking about copycat. So when I was younger, and I'm going to totally do my full Desi accent on this one, but so there's no, full Desi accent coming, right? So when I was younger and we were in school, right? I remember if you were sitting next to somebody, and like they were copying, like, Abe, don't be such a copycat, right? That was something we'd all be saying. Like I remember saying that copycat, right? Like that's what we would do. I would sing it at them. Or, sometimes you'd or miss, she's copying me, right? Like I remember making those arguments when I was younger because I was so mad that someone was copying me, or that I, or that I copied someone, depending on what class it was, what time of the year it was, where I was in, my general business, that kind of thing. Hi, Kim. So good to see you. And look, Team Manessa is here. Guys, make sure that you follow Team Manessa. That's we're moving into some really cool stuff coming in the next, couple of months, and we're organizing. I've got myself a business manager now. We've got community manager Christy Dawn, who is she is behind the scenes right now as Team Manessa. We are really revamping over the next 2 months. You're gonna freaking love it. So much good stuff is coming, and it is all geared towards you. It is all geared towards success for your business, making it faster, making it easier, making it more effective. One of the major things that before we jump into this, one of the major things for me that I realized really bothered me as I was going through my own coursework and creating it was that it took forever. Like it really bothered me that it took forever. And I was like, nobody has time to wait for all of this. So my goal with what I wanted to come up with over the next that I came up with, and now we're launching all of it, was to give you the fastest, most effective way to make as much money as humanly possible in as short a period of time as humanly possible, because that's what we all want. Now, it may seem weird the way that I go about it, but as Dawn just said, I think outside the box. I do not approach business the way other coaches do. So chances are when you look at what I train you how to do, you'll be like, other coaches aren't teaching like this. That's okay. You're definitely welcome to go to other coaches, because everybody learns differently, right? But if you have found that other coaches don't work for you, then the fact that I don't do it like other coaches is actually going to be a benefit to your business, okay? Alrighty, so today we're going to be talking about copycatting. Oh my God, copycatting. Now, here's why I want to talk about this, because actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually just going to dive in. I'm actually just going to dive in and do the whole thing in there, because I realized last week that I tend to go into a preamble beforehand, and then I just do the same thing again when I start the podcast. So I'm actually just going to skip that, start, and then we'll do the conversation after. Okay. All right. What we're going to do, for those of you that have not done this before, is I'm going to just clap my hands, start the podcast. I don't really look at the comments while I'm doing the podcast part. But please talk amongst yourselves, share your stories. If something resonates, feel free to share about it. Like I'm going to come back and look at these comments and then join the conversation with you guys after I've done the podcast. Okay. All right. So ready? Oh God, I got my Kleenex. All right. We all know that the intro is the hard part. I reworked my intro this time, guys. It's a lot shorter. I thought it was getting a little long, so I workshopped that as well. Okay. All right, here we go. Hello, it was a little loud. Hello, and welcome to the Stop Shitting All Over Yourself podcast. My name is Manessa Konecki. I am a business strategist with 25 years of experience working with businesses in crisis to help get them back on track. Like many of my clients, I used to hustle, and constantly give myself shit about not getting things done and worrying about the progress I was making in my business. It wasn't until I dropped all the preconceptions about business and helped my clients do the same that I realized that I was holding myself back with a lot of antiquated business ideas. Join me today as we go over one of my favorite antiques, and that's our need to worry about what other people are doing. Sometimes it's us copying what other businesses do because we think that it's going to work for us, and others it's us going into a tizzy because Julie stole my graphics or my post language. Today, we're going to discard this idea that it even matters what other people are doing without fear of judgment, without shame, and with the confidence that's going to make you a lot more money than you would make if you were paying attention to what they are doing. All right, I should make we're going to pause this for a second while I make this a little bit bigger because I realize I can barely see this. This is getting old. All right. Over the years, I've had my share of copycats, and I've copied a lot of people in various businesses. There was, when I first started, I think 2 years into the social strategy squad, when I was doing one of my revamps, I went in and looked for the social strategy squad, and I found another social strategy squad that was not mine. And she had like 32 members, I think. And honestly, she stole a lot from me. And I looked at it and I just was flabbergasted. I was like so upset. And I sent an email to my lawyer and I said, is there anything that I can do about this? Like, I've not actually trademarked or copyrighted the squad, the name, the social strategy squad. I was like, but she's clearly just trying to run the same thing I am. And she said, we could do something about it. You could trademark it, blah, blah, blah. She's like, but, how many followers or whatever do you have? And I had, I think at the time, like 8,000 or 7,000. And she said, and how many does she have? And I was like 32. She goes, well, you really have to ask yourself if this really matters. If you do a search for the social strategy squad and your squad pops up and her page pops up, like, what do you think people are going to do? Like, is this relevant? And it really made me think about like why I was upset about it, whether it bothered me. And I kind of let that marinate for a little bit. We're going to come back to that story in a minute, but there was also this other dude who started his ad business like literally 2 weeks after I started mine. And this particular dude, like, I knew him. He knew I was starting this business. We had talked about it. And then he started it like right away. And like his prices were so low, like ridiculously low compared to like mine are low, but his were like even lower. Right. And I was just like, oh my God, like I'm not going any lower than what he has. So I was really, I was quite distressed when he did that because I thought to myself that if he does the same thing I do and he's charging less, then more people are going to buy from him or more people are going to work with him than are going to work with me. And I started to feel really like there wasn't going to be enough for me. Okay. And then there are the screenshots that people sent me on occasion with somebody saying, hey, have you seen this? Didn't you write this? And I looked at it and it was someone else posting something as if they had written it. And I was like, yeah, I did write that. And they said, it's in this group and blah, blah, blah in here. And I was like, you know what? I don't have the time for this. Like, I don't care. You want to steal my shit, right? Now, all of those things happened at different times in my business. And I was at a different emotional state each time that it happened. The first time I was very upset. So the first time was with the ads and I was really devastated and I didn't actually have any tools at the time to like work through it, at all. I'd work like, cause for me, it was like, I worked really hard on this idea and now someone else who just didn't do any of that work is stealing it. And now if someone sees what they're doing, they're going to get the credit and I'm not going to get any of the credit. Like there are a lot of things that went through my head at that point, just there was disappointment, there was dismay, there was sadness, there was defeat, there was resentment. There's just a lot of feelings that went through that. Right. I lost a lot of, excuse me. Lara. That's going to need to make it in the bloopers, I think. Lara's doing a blooper reel. It's going to be amazing. So anyway, I lost a lot of time to this feeling the first time around, probably a couple of weeks. And in retrospect, honestly, it was no big deal. The first one was the ads. It was really no big deal. Their business, as far as I'm aware, doesn't even exist anymore. In fact, none of the people who copied me, none of their businesses exist anymore. And not that I wanted their business to fail. I didn't that wasn't my goal, but my point is more about the value of actually using someone else's stuff more than like whether it's good or bad or right or wrong. Right. But anyway, I lost a lot of time to it and I lost a lot of energy to it. Right. Cause I was worrying about it. I was anxious. There was a physical impact of sadness and anxiety. There was a mental impact. I was distracted. So it really took away from the things that I could be doing at my business at that time. But as I got more experience and worked with more people, and some of whom copied other people and some of whom were copies of other people, like just the whole, on the whole spectrum, right? A few things became really, really clear to me the more I got exposure to working with people, one who copied others, one who were people who were copied and how they responded and things like that. I realized that there's really two major types of ways in which copying happens. The first way is you copy what someone else is doing because you haven't been able to come up with anything that you think is cool or creative enough on your own, or you're tired or exhausted and you're just like, oh my God, I'm just gonna copy what someone else does. They may or may not be aware of it. Like some people will say, take my stuff, I don't care. Like if you want to take my stuff, I'm saying right now, you're welcome to take whatever I have. I don't care. Take it. Other people will say, I care, right? And you'll steal their stuff anyway, right? The other way is you come up with something new and fresh that does well. Okay, so you're like, oh my God, I've come up with this great idea. It's so cool. It's so new. It's fresh. And then someone sends you a screenshot or something, or you notice that someone else is copying you doing that same thing like a few weeks later. Okay. Now, so one of them, they're basically the same. Just one of you were the copy. One of them is you being the copier, and the other one is you being the copyee. Okay. So both of those things are going to happen. Now, the thing to keep in mind with when I want to go back to that first time, right? So the first time that it happened and I was devastated and I was like, oh my God, there's not gonna be any customers for me and I'm not gonna make any money. That is a mindset issue, right? And I mean, all of this is really a mindset issue, but this mindset issue is really about abundance versus scarcity. So if I'm to say that you start a business doing what I do and you want clients, right? You're going to copy everything that I do. Okay. Literally copying everything that I do. Okay. And you do the same thing. Now, even if you copy the exact same things that I do, because I crafted my audience based off of myself, based off of who I am and the things that I like and the things that are important to me and the things that are important to you and the things you struggle with, we have very intimate conversations, and I say things that resonate with you. You'll say things that, oh my God, blow my mind and give me another way to help you better. It's a reciprocal relationship where I help you grow, you help me grow, right? If someone takes that and puts it in their own, like they're like, okay, I don't know any of why Vanessa did any of this. I'm just going to copy what she does and do the same thing. But they don't understand why. Then when someone like you, any one of you, let's say, who's not seen me, but who sees them, goes, and now that person is talking about not hustling, right? Let's use that as an example. They can say, don't hustle, don't hustle, don't hustle. But if in their minds, they believe that you do have to work 24/7, right? They're stealing what I'm doing because they think that this is what's going to work, right? They're like, everybody wants this. This is what I'm going to do. They'll call it something else. They'll call it, don't rush with your life, right? And they do it. But if this person hasn't done the emotional and the mental work to get themselves to a space where don't rush with your life makes sense, then you're going to go to them and you're going to listen to what they're saying, and they're going to be rushing and they're going to be acting one way, talking another way. You're going to get confused. You're not going to trust them. And eventually you're going to leave because you're going to be like, I don't even know what's happening here. And you're going to bounce and you're going to go looking for someone else. Eventually you're going to find me. Because what they are is a facsimile. It's like a mimeograph. I don't even want to use a photocopy because photocopies can be fairly good these days. For those of you who are old enough to remember mimeographs, I do remember mimeographs. They were not very good copies. They were usually very blurry, and the more copies you made, the worse the copy was. So it just got worse and worse and worse and more blurry the more copies you made. Smelled amazing though. Oh my God. Mimeographs. Ooh, the smell of mimeographs. Can't you have this? Like as a child, I was like, mimeographs. I had no idea why I loved them so much, but I did. Okay. So the key thing here is that, it's surface level. Okay. So one of the key things to keep in mind is that there's more than enough for everybody. Okay. So there's more than enough for everybody. Okay. And that is like, think about this, right? There's 2.3 billion people on Facebook. Let's say you want to make $20,000 a month. Okay. So if you have 200 people spending $100 with you each month, that's 20,000, right? Yeah. That's 20,000. That's more than enough. That's 200 out of 2.3 billion. Well, there's more than enough for you and someone else and someone else. 200 is just like this. You can't, if you were to actually put all of those in one pile and then try to visually see what your amount of customers looks like, you wouldn't even be able to visually see them because of how many people there are versus how many people you actually need for your business. There are plenty of people out there. So one of the most important things to keep in mind is that there are plenty of customers. There is no world in which 10 people could copy you and there would still be enough for everyone. Okay. So that's really important to remember, is that there is more than enough for everyone. Okay. The second thing is, again, if I said they copy you, they're a facsimile of you, a facsimile of a facsimile of a mimeograph of a facsimile, right? They can copy the graphics, but if they don't know where you're coming from, they cannot take it to the next level and build the relationships. And the relationships are actually where the sales come from, right? You looking at my post is not where my sales come from. You're just looking at it and being like, oh, I read a post. That's not why you buy. You buy because you read a post, it resonates with you. You look at more things that I've done, we connect in some way, but you're connecting with me as a person, right? And not with just my words. Because if that was the case, then you would hire anyone who said, I can teach you how to do email, or I can teach you how to run a business. Like, it wouldn't matter. Somebody would just say, oh, I can teach you. Be like, all right, here's my money, right? but there's obviously something that beyond the teaching that gets you to connect with them. The same thing is true in your business, right? Whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're selling clothes or you're a coach as well, or you are a crafter or a gardener or a service provider, whatever it is that you do, you have developed your own framework around which you train and teach, and your own idea and your own perspectives. No one else can take that from you. So when you talk to someone, you're able to have a really full conversation and build a relationship with them. Whereas if somebody copies something from you, they can't do that. So they'll be very surface level. Okay. So let them. Honestly, the truth of the matter is this: if somebody is copying you, either they're going to figure out that it doesn't work and find their own way around it, or their business will fail. Those are the only two real things that can happen, right? Or they'll start copying someone else, I guess, but eventually their businesses will fail. Now, I will tell you, I used to copy people. I did exactly what it is that I'm talking about here. So I am not always the person who has been copied. I am also the copier. And I have copied many people over my years. And I have discovered that even if you copy the most perfect business that someone else is running that is making them millions of dollars, it's not going to give you the same results. You can do the exact same thing, and it hasn't. And I know that because I copied Crystal Foy, who is amazing, brilliant at what she does, and I did not get those same results. But then when I stopped copying Crystal Foy and started doing my own thing and really honed in on that, I started seeing results. And that is the important lesson here, is that your business is very much about you and your audience, right? If you think that you need to copy them, right? This is what I didn't understand back then, is that if you think you need to copy them, then you're really only on surface level, right? So you're basically just scratching the surface, and you're going to just blow away like the wind, and you're going to have the problem where either you'll start copying someone else, or you'll fail, or you'll realize, okay, copying someone else doesn't work. I need to figure out how to make things work in my own business, right? Because if you're copying someone else, you literally look and sound like everyone else. Like I have seen, one of the things that I've observed over the years is that businesses that are in similar areas start to all look the same. So all boutique owner businesses all start to look the same. The coaching businesses all start to look the same. The knitting and crafting everything all starts to look the same, because everyone's looking at what everyone else is doing instead of really focusing and prioritizing on the relationships that they're building with their customers and what's important. Now, if you do copy someone, something that is important to keep in mind is that sometimes you will see a spike because you copied someone doing something, right? So like, I remember I copied the sale one time and it did really well, and I made a bunch of money that one night, and I thought, oh great, this is working. But it worked only that one time. It never worked again because it was new, it was different. My audience was like, oh, this is interesting, but it wasn't enough to keep them coming back, right? So just because I copied something that worked once doesn't mean that it was enough to keep them coming back and to build a long-term business. It was just good for a flash in the pan, and then it's gone. So if that's the case, just keep that in mind, that sometimes you may copy someone and see that. You want to think about, whether you're worried about someone copying you or you're trying to find other people to copy, you're too focused. You're too busy being focused on other people's businesses to be successful on your own, right? Your business, just like your relationship with individuals like your spouse or your siblings or your children, is unique. And it's unique to you based on who you are, who they are, your environment, your experiences, and so on, right? Now, as a parent, sister, sibling, whatever it is, right? You may look outside for advice, right? So you may be like, hey, this happened with my spouse, or this happened with my girlfriend, or this happened with my kid, or whatever, right? You may look to someone else for advice to talk to them about it and sort of like workshop it. But what you aren't doing is looking at Julie and just watching her exactly how she's taking care of her kid and her relationship and saying, okay, she's feeding her kid dinner now, I'm going to feed my kid dinner now. Okay, she's having a fight with her spouse now, I'm going to fight with my spouse now, right? You're not doing that. That seems weird, right? That seems really weird. A weird way to parent your child, or a weird way to deal with your relationship with your spouse. Where like, okay, Julie, what are you doing with your husband now? Okay, I'm going to do that with my girlfriend now. Bye, right? Like, it's a strange way to run, because that you're like, well, that would never work, because, my partner and I are very unique to ourselves, and our relationship is its own entity, and it is also unique. And Julie and her husband have a very different relationship, and they are two different people. So I can't watch what they do. Also, we don't have children and they have children. So how do we even work that, right? So now that doesn't make sense in your real life, but yet we think it makes sense in business, and it doesn't, because it's the same kind of relationship, because your relationship is with your audience. the issue that most of us have is that we don't know who our audience is. So one of the things that I want to recommend for you is in the show notes for this episode, in the description, if you're watching this live, are links to a target audience video and a keywords video that's going to help you kind of massage that out a little bit. Okay. So the important thing to keep in mind when you're doing this is that you're looking for guidance. You're not looking for someone to copy, right? That's the key. Now, there's a few ways to work through this. The first is to get to know your audience, okay? Get to know your audience. Share things about your life and then ask them about theirs, right? The more you talk to your audience, the more you'll get to know them, the more they'll get to know you, the more your trust will grow, the more you'll customize your business to you, and then other people copying you will be fine, but it'll be weird because they're basically copying you for a relationship that they don't even have, right? Get to know things that are important to your community and your audience so that you can build authentic relationships based on things that you have in common. So that's the first thing, is you want to really get to know your audience. And again, the link in the description and in the show notes will help you to figure that out. And that actually is the second step, is head over to that page, head over to my business page and watch the videos to figure that out. Because that's really where it really starts, is recognizing that you have to figure out who it is that you're talking to and what some of those key areas are that you can latch on to start to build that relationship and gain some traction. Now, these two things alone, right? Getting to know your target audience, talking to them, learning them, and then watching those videos will help you keep your eye on the incredible business that you're creating and off of the distraction of other people's organizations. Now, one last thing that I want to share with you before we wrap up: plagiarism, trademark, copyright infringement, all of those things are against the law. Okay, so those are flat out against the law. And if you find that someone has blatantly violated your copyright or your trademark, please seek the advice of a lawyer, because all of the things that I'm talking about right now we're talking about innocuous, taking things from pages, posts, things like that. But like my logo, your tagline, there are things that you have probably, even if you have not like filed a copyright, you have what's known as a implied copyright, right? And I don't know a lot about that, so you will need to speak to a lawyer, but where you can defend yourself against those things. So it's one thing for someone to take your stuff and use it as their own. It's another thing for someone to try and impersonate you or literally steal your things for props. So like I basically take your workbook that you created, I take the whole thing, I have it bound, and now I'm selling the workbook as my own, right? Now I'm selling it for $50 and you're selling it here, but it's the exact same workbook, right? That's against the law. See a lawyer, right? It's always okay for you to see a lawyer. And that's actually a really good metric for me, is like, do I need to talk to my lawyer? And if it's a no, then I'm going to let it go. If it's a yes, then I'm going to talk to my lawyer, because at that point it's a law issue. It's not like I'm feeling bad. It's like something that my lawyer needs to take care of. Talk to the lawyer, and then I'm going to move back onto my business and focus on the things that I need to focus on. Okay. So that's something I just want to keep in mind, is that this whole conversation is not about just letting everybody take all the things and do all the things. What it's really about is recognizing that copying on both sides, whether you're the copier or the copyee, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't help you. And the most important thing that you can do is to let go of this idea of copying and focus really more on your own business and what you're doing, and look to others for inspiration, guidance, and advice, not for source material, right? Now, most of us started our business for two reasons. The first was that we could live a different and freer life from the one we had in corporate America. And the other was to enjoy the process of creating this enterprise that we envisioned. It was all about what we wanted to do, like for our life and our business, and the joy that we could take out of it. But you can't take joy out of something if you're not like in the thing. And you can't get freedom if you're trying to copy what other people are doing. That's just trading one structure that someone else is imposing on you for another structure that you're imposing upon yourself that you don't even want. And if that's the case, honestly, you may as well go back to corporate, because the truth is, at least then, if you have to be under somebody else's structure, at least you're getting your 40 hours and benefits, right? So that's really something to be thinking about, is that as long as you're copying other people, you're just trapping yourself in a different cage. But that's not what you want, right? That's not why you started your business. So whenever you feel the urge to look elsewhere or get a screenshot of someone using your graphics, remember that the truth is anyone can copy your graphics. Anyone can copy your content, but no one can copy you, okay? No one can copy you, and what they're doing is just surface level. Feeling the freedom to ignore copycats is badass as AF. Like seriously, you'll feel like such a badass, because when somebody sends you something, you'll just be like, oh, it's fine. I don't care, right? I don't care. That feeling of something not mattering is such a powerful feeling, right? Such a powerful feeling. And just by listening to this podcast, you're already feeling more confident to simply ignore them, because you're starting to see how it doesn't really matter as much. There is no substitute for the kind of aura you exude when you feel that way. None, okay? And before I wrap up, I just want to remind you that people get this podcast because you recommend it. So please head over wherever you listen and leave a review so that you can help your friends, your community members, other business owners that you know exude that confident aura, because they can now also let go of copycats as well. Now, we are going to have an incredible week next week as we begin the Social Strategy Squad launch process. It's like a 2-month extravaganza of all kinds of fun things coming out, all specifically designed to help you live a happier, freer, better business life so that you can make as much money as you can in as little time as you can with as little effort as you can so you can enjoy all of your life, right? It's going to be 2 months long. It's going to be fabulous. So do not forget to sign up for the Social Strategy Squad waiting list at socialstrategysquad.com. The link is in the show notes, and it is also up on the screen right now if you're watching this live. Thank you all so much for joining me on the Stop Shitting All Over Yourself podcast. I cannot wait to see you again next week, same bad time, same bad channel, to talk about one more thing that we can just release from our business anxiety. I'll see you then. Okay, guys. Whoa. All right. All the comments popped up. Let's see what we did. We've got the grand rising. Okay. Alrighty. Such important life lessons. Abundance. There is more than enough for everyone. Absolutely. Oh my God, Christy, you're so sweet. She says the Social Strategy Squad is her favorite internet place. It is. It's my favorite internet place too. Oh, except for maybe the hot angry therapist. I love the squad, but the hot angry therapist is pretty hot. Oh, by the way, speaking of hot people, did you see Jason Momoa and Kate Beckinsale at the Oscars? They looked very cozy. Very cozy. She's so hot. Like, oh my God, they seem perfect together. I love it. Okay. Okay. All right. So LaFern says, I love rotary phones. I had my previous boss give me a red one she had in storage for the old farm kitchen. Dude, rotary phones there's literally nothing like that satisfaction of like, I can't even do it. It's amazing. It's amazing. I love it. Okay. It's so funny, Marla, when abundance, there's more and not enough for everyone. It was weird because I actually didn't even understand what the difference I didn't understand about abundance versus scarcity mindset until I was in direct sales a few years ago, and they brought it up to me then. But it still didn't really, I got the idea. And then I talked to Amy Lee a lot, and she really helped me to understand and internalize this for me, where once I realized that there was more than enough for everyone, it really just became easy to not worry about what other people have, because it's not like somebody has something, so I am not going to have something. It's you have something and I'm so happy for you, and then someone else has something and I'm so happy for them. And once I was able to change that, and change that perspective, which happened fairly early on in direct to success business. Like, I think that when I was at LuLaRoe, it was more, I was definitely in a little bit more of like a scarcity mindset towards the end. But I actually had someone come to me, another marketer, and she said, listen, I really want to hire you as my coach, but I'm worried that you don't want to, would you consider working with another marketer? I'm not a boutique owner. And I was like, and at this stage of my business, I didn't understand why she was asking. I was like, of course I'll work with you. And she had some people tell her they wouldn't work with her because they were competition. And I was like, and then I remembered, I had actually even forgotten about all of these things because I haven't been in that headspace for so long. But I thought about it. I was like, oh my God, I remember being in this space where there was competition. The Boutique Hub's theme is community over competition. But I remember being in environments where people said community over competition. Like, Boutique Hub is not. Boutique Hub is absolutely community over competition. But lots of people will say that, but don't actually mean it, right? So it's competition over community. And one of the important things to keep in mind, and this is something that I just want to share with you, is I actually didn't put this in the podcast. I didn't think of it till just now. But be mindful of people who say that they are about community over competition, or say that they are abundance minded, but then behave in a manner that makes you feel like there's not enough, or that makes you feel like there is a competition happening with someone else, because that may be contributing. Like, hanging out with those people could be contributing to that mindset, right? So make sure that the people who say that they are in a certain mindset are actually living that life and really embracing that ideal as a philosophy, not just something that sounds good to say, right? And that goes back to right, some people will, so someone's going to see the Boutique Hub saying community over competition, they'll be like, oh, that sounds really great, I'm going to put that in mind, right? So they'll be like, oh, hey, we are the clothing horse place, and we believe in community over competition, but they don't believe in that. They're always competing, and they're always fighting, and it's really catty, and so they can steal the tagline, but if they don't actually have that philosophy and they don't actually embody that, then nobody's going to want to stay in the clothing horse line, right? They're all going to go to the Boutique Hub. Okay. subconsciously, people know if it's authentic or not. It's not you and your voice, and it will not resonate. Yes, absolutely. That's another thing. And I can't, so LaFern may have more insight on this, but I can say for sure that like, I know as an empath that I can tell when people are being disingenuous. But I also know that human beings by default are very good at picking out things in general when they're being lied to or someone is being inauthentic, because their subconscious sees that person then as a threat, right? Because if someone is lying to you, then chances are, because lying is traditionally or typically associated with an intent to cause harm, right? If you think back to like our entire lives, if someone's telling you a lie, right? You think, I don't know something. That means I'm in danger, right? That means this person is trying to cause me danger. Now, none of this is actually like real. This is all stuff that's happening in your subconscious, but that's the response that happens, right? So like you're sitting here talking about community over competition, let's say, and you don't believe it because you're closed horse line, right? You're closed horse line. And, but the person who's listening, they can tell that it's not something, like they don't feel it coming off of you. And even if they don't understand why they're feeling uncomfortable, like, I will understand as an empath because I've done a lot of work on this. I know exactly what it is that like, I'm like, oh, this person, this is why I feel this way. This is what it's, because that's what I do. That's my living. That's my job. But your average person or myself, say 10 years ago, I wouldn't know why I was uncomfortable if I saw something. I would just leave because I would know I was uncomfortable. I'm out, right? But I wouldn't know why, and I wouldn't take the time to figure it out. And so the person on the other end would just be losing a lot of people, but not know why. Absolutely. If businesses are about relationships, how do they build authentic relationships when they aren't being authentic? They don't. So what ends up happening, Elisa, is that they end up getting quick sales because of the item or the product or whatever, right? So let's say, for example, I sell, I don't want to move anything. I'm selling these cups, right? So like, or Norwex, right? Let's say you sell Norwex, right? And you're not building relationships. You're just selling Norwex. That's all you're doing, right? Like none of these people know your name. They don't care about you, whatever. Then someone else comes tomorrow who connects with them on a personal level. They're going to ditch you for that person because they don't connect with you. They connect with that person. And they're like, well, I need the Norwex stuff and Elisa's here. So whatever, right? But I know you, and I know that's not how you are, right? I know that you build really close relationships with people and you're really close to them, which means that you have customers right now who are shopping with you, and someone else could copy every single thing you do right now and start their own business. But if they don't take the time to care the way you do, they're not going to be able to build the relationships. So the people who buy like Norwex from them, the second they meet you, they're going to leave that person and come to you because they went to that person because they were looking for community relationships that they thought that they were going to get because that person copied you. They didn't get it, but somehow they came upon you or someone else who is truly embodying the community and relationship aspect. And when they meet that person, they're like, oh my God, I can feel the authenticity coming off of you. And they don't really understand really why one is better, but they just know that I like you better, I'm going to you, and that person's gone. So you can't actually run like a business without relationships. Even places like Target, they have relationships with us. It's just not the same type of relationship. And they build their relationship in a very different way. Okay. Alrighty, let's see. Kristen said my bestie in elementary school had a rotary phone. Was I your bestie in elementary school? I had one. Finding your own authentic voice can be hard, especially in the direct sales space when you're surrounded by people saying just do the same thing they did. And that, Christy, I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's really where a lot of this comes from, because so many of us would not be in our own business if we hadn't done direct sales first, right? So like if I had not been in direct sales first, I know I wouldn't have started my own business because my dad had his own business when I was growing up and I didn't want any part of, like, I saw how hard it was. And I was just like, that is not for me. So it was never on my thing. I was on my radar. I was working at a company. I was making good money. I had insurance. I had benefits. I had a good life. I mean, at the time I was nearing the end of my time at that company, but I had everything that I needed. But Syra shows up with LuLaRoe. I'm like, okay, I'm going to try this. I joined her with LuLaRoe. We start doing it. We do it for a few years. And then I like understood how to run a business. And then I was like, you know what? I need to help people with this thing. So I'm going to do this. And I just ended up starting the business and stuff happened, right? But I would never have been in that other space and been like, oh, I'm going to start a business, right? If I had stayed in that corporate, I probably would have been in corporate the rest of my life unless I'd gone into direct sales, which makes direct sales the most amazing opportunity because I love what I do now, right? It's an amazing opportunity to change your life in ways that you couldn't possibly imagine. That said, though, with the good comes the bad, right? You take the good, you take the bad. Oh, God. Somebody just gave me the lyrics the other day, and I remembered them. I was like, oh, my God, I'm never going to forget them, and now I forgot them. Something, the facts of life, right? You take what you get. Damn it. Anyway, the point is you take the good, you take the bad. So even though direct sales is great for that, it's really, really bad for developing your own point of view and your own shtick, as it were, your own. And that's what we're actually talking about in the squad all the month of April, is we're talking about your thing and finding your authenticity, which is like super important in direct sales, because otherwise you end up looking exactly like everyone else. And that's why you end up losing a lot of people because you, I lost my train of thought. So I end up losing a lot of people, period. Okay. Okay. Abundance is my word for the year. Dude, it's hard to wrap your head around the fact that there is enough. You know, that's an amazing, amazing one, Kristen. I think for me, and my word for the year is surrender. And surrender, I think, is, as you're saying abundance, I'm thinking to myself, dude, those are two really hard ones, right? So, and I find them, for some reason, every time I find them, there's like a connection there. And so here's my thought in terms of why they connect. I have to keep looking for opportunities to surrender because I notice I'm such a control freak that I'm always controlling everything, right? And so I find myself, oh, that's a form of surrender. Oh, that's a form of surrender, right? So like when I first started, it was just surrender to certain things. Then it became like surrendering in, the bedroom, right? Surrendering emotionally, surrendering, like trusting more, right? Like when I started to play with it more and dig deeper and spend more time with it, suddenly you start to find all of these ways in which you can surrender, right? And when I first started with the word surrender, I didn't actually expect for it to be quite so extra. I just kind of, I don't know what I was expecting, but it certainly wasn't this. Like I'm surprised at how much surrender I actually need to do. And I think abundance is a tough one because for a lot of us, especially if like me, you grew up with food insecurity or money insecurity, or where you just, or like, unpredictability that made you worry, right? It's hard to feel abundant because it never feels like you have enough. So whenever we get stuff, we have a tendency to hoard it, right? And that, by the way, is a really bad, and I'm not saying that you have that habit, but I did. And a lot of the really bad habits that I got into were a result of me coping with money poorly, coping with the money insecurity poorly. So I got myself into a lot of trouble financially. That's why I didn't pay taxes for 2 years. That's immortalized in the Why Are We Shouting podcast. It's if you just do Why Are We Shouting, Vanessa Konecki and Lara, you can post the link in the show notes if you'd like. But I talk about that, right? And that happens when you have these scarcity mindset, these bad ideas around money. So one of the things that I recommend, if this is if you're in your wheelhouse or something that you want to prioritize this year, is especially for abundance. Amy Crean is my money mindset coach. So I actually hired her and did 2 packages with her. I worked through all of that stuff with her, and that's what helped me to really start to let go. So when I was learning my own abundance mindset, because like that would have been, so LuLaRoe is when I started to learn about the idea, and it took me a little while to kind of like, internalize it. And then I had a bunch of things I needed to like sand out, and I did that with my money mindset coach. So I think that's a really great way of doing it. It's a really great way of accelerating it. But if that's not in your wheelhouse, then on the other side of it, what I would really recommend is come up with some mantras about abundance, right? And that like you really believe, because like the more that, I think about it, the more I told myself like money keeps coming. Money is always coming. Time is limited, right? So I have an abundance of money. I don't have an abundance of time, right? And you start to think about the world differently. So that's another way you can do it, is just really giving yourself some mantras that you can write around the house and post in places so you can just say them to yourself often. Those were really helpful for me. I think that's a really brilliant word, Kristen, because once you embody that truly, then once you really truly feel like there is enough for everyone, then the fear kind of goes away, because then it's just a matter of grabbing what, oh, thanks so much. I'm so glad you like that. Grabbing like what you actually need, rather than trying to like, you're like, oh, I really just need this. Like, I'm fine. But what happens to a lot of us is that we get past the point of feeling abundant. Like, so think about this, right? So let's say your goal, actually, Kristen, since you brought this up, the goals thing, right? Your goals get out of control, right? So like you're thinking, I need to make 20 grand, so I need 200 customers. So that's fine. You're like, I can do that, right? And you get your 200 customers and you're happy. But then you haven't workshopped your abundance scarcity issue, right? So once you get, and I'm sort of hypothesizing here. And so then what happens after that is that now you've hit that 200, but because you don't think there's enough, you panic and you feel like you need more and more and more for the lean times, right? And so now you're like, here, let's go. So now you feel like you need to panic to work, not because you need to get this now, but because you got to make sure you have enough for the, so that you can cope with whatever you remember, your body remembers not having as a child, right? That's the work that you want to do with your therapist, is like really unlearning the trauma response so that you're not trying to protect yourself from something that happened to you as a kid, which is something that I'm working on right now. Like I've been working on with my therapist extensively, because I am right now, because of all the stuff that's going on in Ukraine, there are some things, that coping mechanisms that I internalized when I was a kid that haven't even popped up until now. Now suddenly are popping up because these environments are happening and I need to work through them, even though I haven't had to deal with them since I was 12, right? So now I'm talking to her about, okay, let's talk about this issue. And I'm like, really? So that's something to keep in mind, is that like tackling it from those multiple fronts will help you tackle it faster, and it will help in other parts of your life as well. Okay. Alrighty. Good morning, Paula. Good morning. How did you workshop through the mindset from your dad's journey as an entrepreneur to you starting yours? So actually, I'll be really honest, I didn't really workshop the mindset so much because it just kind of happened. So I tend to be very impulsive, and and my risk tolerance is high. However, when I made the change at that time, my risk tolerance was high because I have no problem cutting ties and just being like, I'm done, move on, right? But I have to get to like a certain point. So like when I was smoking, for example, like I'd be like, smoking, oh, I should quit, constantly, right? I had to get myself, and I did quit multiple times and picked it right back up. But I got to a point where I was just like, you know what? I'm done. And when I got to that point, I was just done. That was it, right? And I didn't need to think about it. I just did the thing, right? So, most of my life, my dad had a business. Then I came to the States. Then I didn't talk to my dad for a while. So there had been so much time between then that at this point, running a business wasn't something I felt passionate. Like it wasn't like when I was a kid, I was like, I feel passionately about running a business. I had a job. I had a thing. So I wasn't even thinking about it, right? So then Syra comes in with LuLaRoe. And at the time, we were working in a place that was incredibly abusive, and it was really tough. And we had both reached probably one of the lowest parts of our physical and emotional and mental lives. It was a very, very tough time. And I wasn't necessarily, I don't know that I was looking to leave. I just know that I was in a place where I was desperate to run away. So it wasn't really like leaving, like I want another job. It was like, I will literally go anywhere to get out of here. That's really kind of what it was. And so I don't recommend people changing jobs for that reason, but, I had desperate times, whatever. Right. So I ran to LuLaRoe, and then, so for me, that was just at the time, because we were doing so well in it, the anxiety there was no anxiety there because we were already doing really well in LuLaRoe before I quit. Right. So now I quit, now I'm in LuLaRoe, everything's fine. Okay. So now this, I think, is the part, and this is why I want to give you the journey, because it's not linear how it happened. Because then when LuLaRoe started to like not be the right thing for me anymore, what happened in that moment was this: my desire to help people superseded my anxiety about failing. So I was afraid, but I knew that I had something really special. I knew that I had a perspective that no one else did. I knew that I knew that there was something really important that I had to do at that moment. And I felt it in my soul, but I didn't know how to do it. And so what you've been seeing over the last 4 years is me learning how to do what it is that I've known in my gut since I left LuLaRoe, that this was my life. This is my purpose. This is my mission. This is what it is. And that really is what superseded the fear for me, was really just my calling. It really is a mission and a calling more than it's anything else. And so for me, that superseded the fear, because it's like, I don't want to die not having fulfilled my purpose, right? I don't want to die not having done this thing, which I know is really important, is going to change a lot of lives, right? So that's really what it was. So I think it was really more about, and at that point, I was more desperate to get it done, because, and I still feel that way sometimes. I feel like, oh my God, I hope I have enough time to do this. Not that I'm dying tomorrow, but there's still that fear that I'm going to run out of time. And that's what I have to do. Like, so for me, my hustle doesn't come because I'm desperate for money. My hustle comes because I'm afraid I'm going to run out of time before I finish what I'm trying to do. And I want to leave this on the earth. Now, that's something that's really important to me. So for me, that's where my impetus comes from. So I think it really is about figuring out for yourself, what is that desire that is stronger than the fear or the anxiety about not having a business. Gary, thank you, Sophia. You take them. Okay, so you take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and there you have the facts of life. There you go. The facts of life. Thank you. I'm gonna need you to remind me a few more times, but I need it. I need to have that in my repertoire because I really like it. Okay. Okay. Alrighty, you guys. This was so much fun today. I felt, I don't know, I just felt really good doing this podcast. I felt really good hanging out with you guys. I felt really good talking about these things. So what I want to leave you with is this, focus on, keep your eyes on the road. If you need to put virtual blinders on yourself, do that. But if you need to talk to your therapist, do that, right? If you need to meditate and be with yourself to build confidence in your own ideas, do that. Whatever it is that you do for your mental health to workshop your way through an idea, maybe it's talking about it in the squad, maybe it's talking about it with your friends, maybe it's just coming back and talking about it on this conversation here. Do that. The most important lesson for today is really just to remember that your business is a relation. The money that you make in your business is the result of individual relationships that you have, not the relationship that you have with your audience, and individual relationships you have with people that buy from you. Okay. And that as long as you're looking outside, you're going to find it harder. But if you look inside and look towards your people and towards yourself, when you look to find those ways of connection, you will find that not only are you happier in your business, but you start making a lot more money. And the way that I want to recommend you start that today, Karina, dude, I'm so happy that I was able to help you today. Thank you so much for joining us. What I want to recommend for you and anyone else who is struggling with this, what I want to recommend is head over to the business page, check out the 2 links. The links are also in this description, so you can click on those and check those out, because what they're going to help you to do is figure out how you can create those lines of connection with your audience so you can start feeling that way. Okay, so the links are in the description. Head over there right now, check it out. And if you have any questions, feel free to post anywhere on this thread, on the other threads, or you can message the